Antonio. As Wendy Williams would say, how you doing? Well, we got 3 to 4 days before early voting starts in San Antonio. I'm hearing reports out of San Antonio that the organizing effort is superb. You thought I was going to say it was horrible. You thought I was going to say, what the hell is going on in San Antonio? No, exact opposite. Record numbers of young people are being registered to vote. Record numbers of women are getting registered to vote. They're saying at these offices they've never seen this many people be processed. They're running out of paper. I want to make that clear. They're running out of paper. Now, let me give you a word of caution, San Antonio, because I know how the game works here. I'm familiar with it. Go on to the Secretary of State's website. You all have internet service. And if you don't, go to a place where you can get it, a library. Check your voter registration. I don't know if Beto O'Rourke and the campaigns and the affiliates on the ground are really telling people this. That's why I want to come in and close the gap and tell you, check your voter registration. I'm not saying that Texas is doing this, but we know Georgia is. People who have voted in every election, or in most elections in recent years, are suddenly finding themselves not registered or on the voter rolls in Georgia. Check your registration if you reside in San Antonio or anywhere in the state of Texas. But this is specifically to San Antonio. We just spoke with Houston. San Antonio, check. It doesn't hurt, as they used to say, to check. Another thing about San Antonio. You have 1.5 million residents. Now, I would imagine everyone who's a resident is not a citizen. Only citizens can participate in elections. I have to put out that disclaimer because they'll say the people who monitor these things and have nefarious interests in monitoring, they'll say that I encourage you who are non-residents, non-citizens to vote. And that's not what I'm encouraging. So out of the 1.5 million residents, I don't know how many of you are citizens. I don't know how many of you are registered. I don't care. If 300,000 people in San Antonio vote, I would say that's a safe bet. 300,000 people probably have to be citizens in San Antonio. At least. There's probably way more. But I want to be on the safe side. If 300,000 of you vote, we're going to win this election. You know, in midterm elections, turnout is really usually low. Young people don't vote in midterms. It's a shame, but it's true. Minority communities don't really vote in midterms. It's a shame, but it's true. But San Antonio, after this rogue activist Supreme Court stripped away a right that's been held by American citizens for 50 years in this country, people are now deciding to take interest in their representative government at record numbers. I think we're going to see something we've never seen before. We're going to see record turnout in this midterm election. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say this. After the organizing I've seen in Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, El Paso, San Antonio, after the organizing I've seen, after the thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people attending these battle royal rallies, I'm convinced the shocker, the upset of the night is going to be Texas. I think people are really, really tired of the game of deflection that the governor has been playing. You know, he's mostly running around the state scaring people about immigration. Well, let's talk about that. Isn't that a failure of the governor? And the reason I asked that, San Antonio, is because in 2018, during the last midterm election, there was a large caravan that started in Guatemala and in Honduras. And by the hundreds of thousands, people poured into this country. Remember, on Fox News, they were saying it was an invasion, a migrant caravan. Go back and look it up. President Joe Biden was not the president in 2018. That was President Trump. You know who was the governor in 2018 in your state? Greg Abbott. Now, he didn't blame President Trump for the migrant caravan. But now that people are still coming into the country illegally, he wants to blame President Joe Biden. You know what the only variable that's remained consistent in all of this is, San Antonio? Your governor, Greg Abbott, under two presidents of different parties, he's failed to stop the thing that he's going around the state scaring everyone about. He's failed to stop people coming into the state of Texas. Now, if I had failed something twice under two vastly different parameters, am I going to blame the test for being rigged against me? Or is it something that I'm possibly doing incorrect? You see, Greg Abbott doesn't want to think about, maybe it's his leadership. Maybe it's the way he's doing things. No, it's always blame and deflection. When the power grid went out during the winter storm in Texas, you lost electricity and you lost leadership simultaneously. Greg Abbott was nowhere to be found, and Senator Ted Cruz hopped a plane to Cancun because his wife was cold and wanted to try on her new Fashion Nova bikini. The only person that stuck around that we saw with our own two eyes, I'm just being honest, Texas, listen to me. The only person we saw with our own two eyes driving his pickup truck all over Texas, passing out water and resources, first aid kits, was Beto O'Rourke. We didn't see your governor. We lost power and we lost the governor. Ted was in Cancun on the beach getting a tan. Beto O'Rourke was doing the work. San Antonio. You know who raised $5 million? Was it your governor? No. Was it your senators? No. It was a little, well, I don't think she's little. She's well known. A well-known congresswoman who's repeatedly maligned and disparaged by conservatives. She raised $5 million for the residents of Texas impacted by that storm. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. AOC. Do we know her? Yeah, she raised $5 million. You lost electricity and you lost leadership at the same time. And I think people are waking up to this. They're sick of it. He spent $12 million to take people who were getting ready to be processed, who had appointments on Monday. He put them on a bus and dropped them off on a sidewalk all across America. That $12 million could have gone towards fixing the grid. Instead, it went towards a political stunt to try to demonstrate that he's being tough on immigration. You know that they only pull these stunts when their name is on the ballot in 3 months. So what are they doing the rest of the time? Absolutely nothing. Don't be bamboozled this year, San Antonio. Don't fall for the okie dokie. This is being a scammer, a trickster. This is what your governor is. He's trying to trick you into believing that he's something that he's not. He says, I'm a problem solver. Has he solved the problem on the border? He's had 2 different presidents. One that he claims he agreed with wholeheartedly in Donald Trump. And one that he says he disdains and hates with a passion, Joe Biden. So why is the problem still persistent? He's the only variable that hasn't changed in this. But he doesn't want to look and tell you that. So he wants to blame everyone else. He can't blame Beto O'Rourke because Beto O'Rourke hasn't been in Congress for a while. And El Paso is actually one of the safest communities. It's one of the better communities in Texas. The people in El Paso love Beto O'Rourke. They remember when he was a congressman. The good job he did. See, that's what this is really about. And that's what the governor is trying so desperately hard to not make it about. A referendum on his leadership style versus Beto O'Rourke's leadership style. He wants to talk about President Biden. But under President Trump, hundreds of thousands of people poured into the state of Texas as well. And he didn't blame the president then. So why is he blaming the president now? See, this is deflection. This is what they do. We're not going to let him get away with it this time, San Antonio. We're simply not. And that's why I'm calling him out on it. I, too, am frustrated and sick of it. People are having to deal with rolling blackouts Just like in California, they talk about their states being so much better than the West Coast. Well, I see the same thing on the West Coast I see in Texas. Unhoused people in Los Angeles. Unhoused people in Houston. Unhoused people in Dallas. Unhoused people in Austin. Unhoused people everywhere. They say, oh, there's rolling blackouts in California. People froze to death when their grid failed. I just want to make that clear. There's rolling blackouts in the lower 4th Ward of Houston. Residents say they are without power more times in a month than they have. Straight from the horse's mouth, the residents. They could be lying, but I don't know why they would have reason to lie. Certainly not something you're going to lie about. This has all happened under Greg Abbott's watch. And rather than focus and fix these problems, he's blamed everyone when he's the chief operating officer. That's what a governor is. They're the chief operating officer over the entire state. So when Uvalde happened, and he couldn't even be the leader, we saw that. Complete vacuum of leadership. Still to this day, the parents of Uvalde say they have not gotten what they needed. They don't feel safe. And they say the people responsible for safeguarding their children have not been held accountable for what they did. Do you think the governor cares? Certainly doesn't seem like it to us. Beto O'Rourke came to that press conference and he called out the governor to his face. Now see, I was watching that and everybody said that was a political stunt. Possibly. He's running for office against this idiot who hasn't done anything. I'm being frank here. He's an idiot who hasn't done anything. And he came to the press conference frustrated that the chief operating officer presiding over the state doesn't do anything. Now, it can be construed as a political stunt. It can also be construed and taken as a resident and a citizen of a state frustrated with their leadership. Conservatives just wanted to take it one way. They wanted to see it one way. But I saw it as Beto O'Rourke representing the parents of Uvalde, who couldn't be there, who couldn't speak up, who don't know English well. I saw it as being an ally defending the parents of Uvalde massacre when the governor was giving them bullshit. We now know the things he said at the first press conference were completely a lie. And he knew that they were a lie. So why shouldn't the citizenry be outraged and upset? They have every right to be. Beto O'Rourke is a resident and a citizen of Texas. He pays taxes there. If he feels that he's getting inadequate leadership, he has a right to challenge the leadership, to demand accountability from the leadership. This is things we want all residents and citizens to do, whether they run for office or not. Hold your elected leaders accountable. Greg Abbott needs to be held accountable. He's done nothing. He stokes division and fear during election season, and then he hides the rest of the time he's in office. And every once in a blue moon, he'll do some divisive executive order. He'll tell you about transgenders going into bathrooms, critical race theory being taught in the schools. But when it comes to keeping your electricity on, that's not happening. When it comes to you having clean, fresh drinking water, that's not happening. When it comes time to protecting your kids in school, that's not happening. So let me ask you something. Is it more important to focus on mythical CRT monsters, a transgender youth on a public school team? Is that more important than your electricity, your water, and keeping your children safe in school? This is something that San Antonio is going to really have to focus and answer. Which is more of a priority to you? Because Governor Greg Abbott, if he's re-elected, is going to continue doing the same job he's doing for you right now, which is a horrible, miserable job. And if you want that, be my guest. Go right ahead. Go and vote for it. But don't say I didn't warn you. If you want something fresh and new, if you want someone who's going to make changes, if you want someone who's going to work to make Texas a state that's for everyone, then vote for Beto O'Rourke. Get organized, San Antonio. I think you're doing a good job, but you can never be perfect in organizing. Get out there and knock on doors. Make the phone calls. Text your friends. Tell them it's important, because it is. You're tired of the horrible management, that complete and utter lack of empathy. You're tired of it. You want someone who's going to actually listen. Greg Abbott doesn't listen. He didn't listen to the parents of Uvalde. He didn't listen to the residents in Houston that froze. He doesn't listen. We need someone who's going to listen to us. We might not agree with everything, but they're at least willing to listen to us. I'm tired of all of these politicians. Really, this is a fact. I'm tired of all of these politicians coming before us, asking us to vote for them. And then when they get elected, they don't ever have to listen to us anymore until the next election. And then they come and say, we want to hear from you. You didn't want to hear from me when I was freezing to death in my apartment. You didn't want to hear from me when I was screaming to be let into the school as my children were being slaughtered. But now you want to hear from me mysteriously during an election year when your name is on the ballot. It's time to stop this game. They have to be held accountable this time around. They have to be held accountable this time around, San Antonio. Hold them accountable. If 300,000 people vote in San Antonio, Beto O'Rourke is going to win. You find me, or you get me 300,000 votes in San Antonio. And I'm not breaking any laws. I want to suggest that and make that clear, because the election hasn't happened yet. Now, if I had made that statement after the election, that potentially could be a crime. I'm saying you get me 300,000 votes before anybody starts voting. Give me 300,000 votes in San Antonio. If you can get 400 or 500,000, I'm gonna love you forever. Participate, San Antonio. Play your part. You're tired of this horrible, neglectful leadership too. I know. Everyone is. Let's not continue to let the clue. Greg Abbott is a horrible leader. Horrible. And you know, oftentimes what horrible leaders do, they deflect, they point fingers at others for things they're responsible for. He says he's a problem solver, San Antonio. When you go on election day, when you walk up to that machine, when you take that paper ballot, think to yourself, how many problems has Greg Abbott, your governor, solved for you? He's running as a problem solver. So this should be an easy question for you. How many problems has your governor solved? Beto, close out this way. If somebody is saying they're a problem solver, cool beans. How many problems has Governor Greg Abbott solved in the state of Texas? Vote accordingly.